Hello, my name is Daniel Space, also known as Dan from HR, and today we're talking about Robynn Storey, Storeyline Resumes, and why you should be very careful engaging with them. For this next section, I'm just going to do a quick introduction of who I am. If you already know who I am, go ahead and go to the timestamp to begin the story. As I mentioned, my name is Daniel Space, also known as Dan from HR. I am an HR professional, but I'm an HR business partner. I do encourage people to follow me on LinkedIn because my whole brand is on debunking nonsense and giving no cap HR content about how corporate America works. To verify that I am who I say I am, you're more than welcome to check out my experience. I got a start in benefits doing American Express, went to the Children's Place. I became an HR generalist and then became a business partner at around that time where the business partner role was really thriving. I stayed there for about 6 years at WebMD. Then I went to Electronic Arts and then I went to Spotify. After Spotify, I decided just to do consultancy. And then in 2020, I decided to open up my own account, which was a content creation account under Dan from HR. I did it primarily on TikTok, but started opening up accounts on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, all of them, with the concept of debunking bad advice, essentially saying this is how it actually works and trying to make a lot of things free. As an HR business partner, to really simplify the role of my job, I help companies like Electronic Arts and like Spotify to understand what their talent strategy is, which includes interviewing and staffing as one part of it. As a result, I'm very, very good at explaining how companies make hiring decisions. Anything from resume review, job search parameters, writing job descriptions, writing job family matrices, designing job levels, to helping candidates understand how hiring managers make their decisions. In a lot of my content, again, I describe how all of this works with a particular focus on LinkedIn. Because of the way that remote work changed work forever, LinkedIn has become the undisputed leader as it relates to any kind of corporate or office jobs. And that's because of your chances for passive discovery. So instead of you having to apply to a bunch of roles, provided that your LinkedIn is maximized, you can have potentially tons of recruiters looking for you. Now, the problem is people use LinkedIn also for their own business, and there's a lot of different types of posts that seem like they're on your side, but in reality are just used to emotionally manipulate you. These are called hero posts. Now, I developed a reputation on LinkedIn for calling out hero posts all of the time to such a degree that a lot of these LinkedIn influencers with big followings that had no idea about how hiring worked, anytime I challenged them, I would usually get blocked. So right now, there's this hero post going around by someone who already blocked me, but this is an example of a hero post. We interviewed someone because she sent me a message on LinkedIn. More context. She graduated from law school. Now, as you can see, there's this one space between every line. The idea is that that's going to capture a reader as they're scrolling through. And the purpose of this is to say, hey, they were rejected from the job, but because they sent a LinkedIn message, they got hired. But as you can see, there's not enough specifics. It feels vague. The person is never tagged in it. But ironically, the person disproves their own point because they say this is why it's so important to master the hidden job market. But how would they have known to apply to the job if it was hidden? So this is essentially a hero post. Now, my friend who sent this to me, this has 1,400 reactions. It has thousands of comments and shares because the point of this type of post is to galvanize you, the emotionally available job seeker who's so frustrated, who just wants someone to give them a chance, because the more that they can manipulate you, the more that you engage with this post. So they do absolutely nothing for you, but you help build their engagement. Now, one of the biggest and worst examples of someone who hero posts is Robynn Storey. Based on the exchange that we had, Robynn has already blocked me, but she's essentially one of the most biggest voices, especially as it relates to resume writing, job seeking, but she utilizes these hero tactics as a marketing vehicle. She'll always be the one to say, one of our clients just got a $250,000 job, or dear hiring managers, make sure you give people a chance. And she gets all of these views and all of these engagements so that people buy her content. Like I said, she's already blocked me based on our exchange, but what does her content look like? Well, if we go to Storeyline Resumes, we can see. And as you can see, she's rated herself the #1 service. She has all of these metrics. She just released a book. And if we go down here into these are her products. These are her resumes. So this is where the exchange between she and I started, because what was happening, especially over the last year, where people were hiring me to say, Daniel, I know that you don't normally do job search services, but I paid all of this money for a Storeyline resume and it's gotten absolutely nowhere. Let me go to the page where that shows. Yep. So what she does is essentially bases compensation packages by salary range, or base resume and career growth services by salary range, which I think is good. But these salaries are so out of line. People out of school, especially in tech, are averaging between 150 to 225, but it doesn't mean that they're an executive. But if you look at these packages, I mean, these are absolutely insane as it relates to prices. So what was happening was people were coming to Robynn's stories. They were believing those stories and saying, hey, Robynn, could I hire you? Robynn has a team of like 50 to 70 people. They would get back this resume, and the resume would perform terribly. I mean, if you look at something like this, what does this mean? These are PowerPoint graphics. And as you can see, despite the fact that this looks somewhat compelling and dynamic, there's nowhere for the eye to go. It's just so much text. There's so much graphics. It's not a clean resume. Over the last year, more and more people started to contact me to hire me for the job search services. As I said before, this is not my primary source of income. I don't like writing resumes, but I just have a good idea of how it works. But I still try to make a lot of free content. I've written a few guides that are really cheap just so that people can have a good place to go. But every once in a while, someone wants to insist, and it's fine. What I started to realize, though, was that I kept having to fix Robynn Storey's resumes. So people would spend anywhere from $800 to $1,200 for these resumes, and they'd be like, I don't understand what happened. I'm now getting absolutely no contact whatsoever. Is there something you can do? And I'm usually fixing them anywhere between a quarter at cost to sometimes even free, because I feel so bad because these resumes are not performing. So the first few times it happened, I didn't really pay attention, but it got to a point where I started to track how many of these resumes I were fixing, because those types of resumes really stand out. And once it got to 10, I sent them a nice note. I said, hey, my name is Dan. I do Dan from HR. I debunk a lot of this. Robynn, I know you've been in the resume writing industry for 24 years or so, but I keep having to redo your resumes. And despite the fact that they're visually compelling, they're just really not ATS compliant. They're so confusing and they're a little bit overwhelming with information. This happens a few more times, and it starts to get on my nerves because people are sending me these emails saying, I spent $900, I spent $1,000. I'm charging anywhere between $175 to $300 at most, especially because if I'm fixing someone's resume, I feel bad because they already paid for someone. And I sent Robynn 3 or 4 more notes, each one getting more progressively insistent that the products that she's offering are just not good. Finally, a month ago, I reached my limit. I had someone reach out to me over a weekend. They had paid a huge amount of money for a really terrible resume. This person worked in product. They should have been picked right up, but the resume was like a complicated maze. And the person said that they had tried several times to get a refund, to try to get some sort of even partial refund back, and there was just nothing to do. So I spent an hour and a half on a Sunday night to fix it so that they could start doing job search on Monday. And within 2 days, they were already getting hits. So I made this post. And I tagged Robynn Storey in it because I've already tried to reach out to her a few times. And despite the fact that I am a little bit conflict okay, especially when I try to challenge people that are deliberate scam artists like Consulting, but with Robynn, I had some respect for her because she's a well-known voice. She has 1 million followers. She has a well-known rabid following of people that are her avid supporters. So despite the fact that I know this is not pleasant, at the same time, I tried to make the tone decent. And I focused instead on the things that were happening over and over again, like the things that I have to keep fixing, that these visually stunning resumes just do not perform. There's no place for the eye to go. It's just so overwhelming with color. And the worst part was that unless you're part of hiring recently, you don't understand what job families and job family responsibilities are. So one of the things that I pride myself on is that when someone reviews their resume or sends me their resume, I usually am familiar enough with most corporate roles that I know when something is missing or I know when something is not framed the right way. And if you're just not responsible for that type of hiring, then how would you know what to look for? I have 40,000 followers on LinkedIn. I'm like 1/30th of her size. At no point did I ever expect her to even to notice. And she did, and I have to say she was really pleasant. She was really great. She understood all of my concerns, and we arranged a call, and she's been absolutely great. Yeah, right. I've decided to copy and paste the exchange because I had some personal information from other messages. I'll let you pause to read, but this is essentially her point of view, that she saw the post about my business. She's incredibly disheartened, that she felt that this was me trying to gain my business, not understanding that I'm an HRBP consultant. I don't even like job search. I did want to make sure I took everything she said seriously. So this is something that really stuck out. We mostly work with senior level and executive level candidates, which is obviously not true given that her website accepts people as low as 75,000, which is nowhere near executive. She then goes on to assert to say we do provide all of our clients with an ATS version of their resume. Every client that I've spoken to has said they never got that. All they got was this huge brochure-like client, this huge brochure-like resume. I'm sure you meant to drive attention to your post. Honestly, the reason why I was driving attention to the post was because I had sent several messages unresponded to, and I was sick and tired of fixing her garbage resumes at a huge discount, if not for free. She makes this strange thing like I'm calling my attorney, but that's not who I am, like threatening that she should. And then she said, we love what we do, brought up a whole bunch of other nonsense, and then said, I wish you all the best in your business, and I will leave it up to you to remove your post, Robyn. So then this is my response. I tend to really favor mirroring, so I'll usually use the sort of language that I get back so that the other person and I are playing in the same sort of field. So I start the same way she did. I'm incredibly disheartened that your priority is on your own feelings and not the clients that you feel scammed. The best part is this isn't my business. I'm an HRBP consultant. I do business partner work and I take maybe several clients a month, usually by referral. Between the time I posted to this message, I had about 30 of her former clients DM me privately to say that they had a terrible experience, but they don't want to put it public because they know how rabid Robyn can be. I said this whole post absolutely reeks of self-service. If you had written this about me after months of trying to get attention to me, I would be mortified that people felt scammed, not upset at the message. The resumes are not good. They're not optimized. They're overwritten. They're poorly structured. And you have a choice. Do you act out aggressively because someone with a tiny shred of the following, with no other motivation aside from being the voice of your clients, hurt your feelings? Or do you want to listen to the feedback and just offer better products? I'll leave that up to you, Robyn. Now, I give Robyn a lot of credit. Obviously, that's a pretty stern message back. And out of all the options she went with, she went full epic rap battle. Like, she destroyed me in a bar. Like she said, your tender concern for the scammed clients is admirable. It's as if you've donned the mantle of a valiant crusader, bravely battling the injustices of the world from the comfort of your keyboard. But anyone in the service business understands that not all customers are going to be satisfied 100% of the time. But we did not get to this point in our business by not paying attention to our customers' needs and adapting our process, strategies, and business model to continue to meet those needs. Feel free to bask in the glory of your moral superiority, but the last thing I need is someone I don't know with obviously questionable judgment and morals mansplaining to me how to do my job. How the hell do we get to mansplaining, man? I mean, there's no way I could top that. So basically, I just said that's a lot of words for saying I'm not going to take responsibility for my actions. And I just basically reinforced my same point. Care more about the people you're scamming for and less about me hurting your feelings. At which point she blocked me. The one thing I'll always try to be is fair, and provided that people get value, that to me is the most important. Maybe I just have the worst luck and I'm just getting the 50 or so people that have had absolutely really terrible experience. But I wanted to take what she said seriously. People who work in the customer service business know that everyone is not going to be satisfied all the time. Totally 100% true. So I decided to do some digging. So this is the Better Business Bureau, and this is Storeyline Resumes. That number's not too bad. So then when I start to read the reviews, however, I start to see some of the common themes all over again. And especially, I mean, looking at recency, we just get these 1 stars and then a 4-star. But after 20 years in the same industry, Storeyline helped give my resume a much needed update. Okay, great. You know, that's good. And then 5 stars here, 5 stars, 5 stars. Okay, this seems to be telling a story. Okay, now we're back to 1 star. And as you can see, they get really defensive in this. Again, back to 1 star. And the same thing over and over again. It's I paid $800 and I had to redo it myself. Do not waste your time with the company. Interviewer told me we had 45 minutes of a hard stop. The trust, like all of this, anything from like the customer service intake to the final product is consistently bad. Now, this is sort of a weird one. Like, this feels a little bit planted, but I can't say anything. And then back to 1 star, another 1 star, 5. Like, so they're very, very inconsistent, where people are either apparently totally in love and absolutely love it, or absolutely hate it. And the same thing, the thing that gets me is that it's the same problems every time. The literary masterpiece they produced for me was utter junk with disconnected template paragraphs. And that's the same thing that I keep pointing out. These weird clip art things, these things from Microsoft. Here, we'll bring it up again. Like, what is this? This is clip art from PowerPoint. What do these worlds mean? This red is so obnoxious. Like, where do your eyes go? Like, the whole secret to resumes, and I'll show some basic templates at the end of this video, but it's all about leading your reader into the important parts. Everything here is just filled with space. There's no breaks. It's just this huge, overwhelming amount of content. And that's for like the professionals. So this is what standard people apparently should be using. I think the executive we went through before, again, this is clip art from PowerPoint. And then we have like this, the word honeycomb. Like, what is this supposed to be? And again, these colors are just so overwhelming and confusing. Like, are these supposed to be keywords? Or is the different shade of blue supposed to be how much more of an expert that you're in? What are these? Like, all of this is just terrible. And the worst part is, like, the most important things that recruiters, that hiring managers want to see is the company name and your title. So the fact that it's kind of buried here and then like your title's sort of buried here is just awful. And then I think if we go to the executive, I think we have more smart art. Yeah, we have this whole the Gantt chart looking thing over here. We have like the Star Wars list of skills. Like, it's just so much information. And again, I give her credit. It's a nice design, but if it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, then you're overcharging people. So now actually let's go to Trustpilot, and this is nothing but bad reviews. It's 1 to 2, either 1 to 2 stars. I think the highest one they have is 2 stars, but it's only 8 reviews. So I can't say that people are unhappy with it. I do like to be fair, but from my own personal perspective and just reading this from the last 6 months, it is consistently bad product, bad service with no ability to get your money back. So I started to post my findings on TikTok, especially the dispute, and it ended up getting picked up by a niche tea channel. I'll tag her and show her information because I thought she did a great neutral job of covering it. But what I really wanted to focus on was making sure that you as viewers get to see good resources. So if you are on TikTok, or even if you're not on TikTok, you can go to Dan from HR to view this. If you go to playlists, I have the Robynn Storey playlist here. And then I wanted to call out Aerith Girl, who is a tea channel, and she has just amazing, amazing videos where she covers fights and disputes and arguments from communities that are not really part of what you would normally see day to day. So when someone saw me making these videos, she decided to make her coverage of it. I think it's this one, I think. Yep, it's this one. So I just kind of want to show her off a little bit. But I thought she did a really great job of this. And like I said, I'll include the link below. So what do you do? Who do you trust? Should you hire a resume writer? In almost all cases, no. However, I'm the first person to admit there's way too much information out there, and there's way too many self-styled career coaches who don't have the foggiest idea of how this works. Before you take any advice, one of the primary things I always tell people is to be a smart consumer. So before you look at anyone's advice, go to LinkedIn, double check their LinkedIn and see what experience do they have with how companies make hiring decisions. Being a CEO of a career coach company does not make you a hiring authority. You need experience either in recruiting, in HR, or as a hiring manager, and I think for at least 10 years and at least 2 to 3 companies in order to get a really solid understanding to make you a credible authority of how day-to-day hiring works. You should also make sure that the person has targeted domain knowledge. As an example, when someone asks me about help in higher education, being a doctor, anything being a teacher, I'll always say I don't know. I have no experience in this. All of my expertise is only in corporations, generally more than 500 people. So that being said, let me show you some actual resources. So if you were to go to my website from here, it takes you to my Stan link, and I try to order things that go from either free to newsletter to paid things. So generally speaking, all of my job search content, and because I have 2 audiences, one to help other HR business partners as well as just job search and then just general corporate America stuff, just go here to resume templates and examples. I already have them open. After you fill it out, here's the 3 different downloads. This is the general resume template for 2024. It essentially just teaches you the basics of how to build a standard resume that will work in every corporate environment for almost every corporate role. This is good for the ATS, it's good for the recruiter, it's good for the hiring manager. It just gives you some basic tenets of how to write strong bullet points. One of the other documents just starts to give really advanced resume techniques. So essentially, this is like a fully well-written resume for someone with more than 20 years of experience that demonstrates a few tactics, such as how to make sure that you're optimizing real estate to not do a wasteful skills section, making sure like not to use bucket list skills section or like this RPG maker skill section. Skills really are one of the least important things, and they sort of belong really at the end of the resume, like after the experience. And then what I go over here is something called anchoring, which is where you provide a small, kind of a brief italicized introduction into what the company does, because that provides context into the reader about how you did these things into what type of company. And then I talk about a previous experience section, which is really good if you have experience more than 13 to 15 years, because it's not important anymore. And then they go into things like if you're ever a consultant or freelancer, you want to make sure that you avoid doing things like this and instead really take advantage of using the consultancy to really flesh out your experience like within other industries or with other skills. And then an advanced technique called career storytelling, where you always use the same bullet to talk about the same type of thing that you did, but demonstrating growth over time. And then finally, just to show I'm a man of my word, here's my resume. This is a resume that has gotten picked up and passively invited to interview at 4 of the 5 FANG companies, at 2 of the 4 big fours, at a large number of the F100, F500. It's standard. It does its job. As you can tell, there's no PowerPoint clip art on it. It just tells what people need to know in a very clear and concise way. I'm using guides to make sure that I'm driving the reader through. I use nice bulleted spaces to make sure that it's not overwhelming, and I just take the reader from top to bottom for my experience with the previous experience section. This is all it takes for skills and then education. All right, that's everything I got. This is formally my first ever recorded YouTube video that's not a converted short. I plan to make a lot more of these. I love to cover topics and questions that people have, so that if I can debunk anything about corporate America, from hiring to promotion to compensation, please let me know, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.